let's see where we are here, where the Dan is on in. Dan Pearson?
Yep.
Go ahead.
Thank you. Well, thank you for the opportunity for the Dump Veolia Coalition to voice some of our concerns. The Dump Veolia Coalition opposes any contract between the City of St. Louis and Veolia that involves our water division. Our coalition enjoys support from a diverse and growing group of organizations, including the Missouri Coalition for the Environment, the St. Louis Palestine Solidarity Committee, the Sierra Club Eastern Missouri Group, Women's Voices Raised for Social Justice, Corporate Accountability International, the 15th Ward Democrats, the Council for American Islamic Relations, Missouri Muslims for Civic Engagement, St. Louis Jewish Voice for Peace, St. Louis University Justice for Palestine, the Instead of War Coalition, Organization for Black Struggle, and Missourians Organizing for Reform and Empowerment. Over 3,000 people have signed our petition, and hundreds of residents have taken the time to contact members of the Board of Estimate and Apportionment and their own aldermen and alderwomen on this issue. The Dump Veolia Coalition is aware that our city's water department has serious needs. We don't oppose change. We oppose hiring Veolia. The St. Louis Water Department is known for its quality and great service. A recent statement by James Coomer, the fiscal manager for the Water Division, asserts that employees have taken a system with zero reserves 3 years ago and built it back to a financially healthy state. According to Coomer, this was accomplished internally without any outside management assistance. Why do we oppose a contract with Veolia? In short, we oppose working with Veolia because of the company's record. Veolia Water North America is a subsidiary of the Veolia Environment, a Paris-based multinational corporation and the largest water privatization business in the world. Worldwide, consumers report that Veolia has consistently hiked up rates, provides poor service, causes staff turnover, discourages water conservation, and fails to implement promised improvements. Its history reveals consistent prioritization of profit at the expense of the environment and public welfare. Some examples of this: in its proposal to the St. Louis Water Division, Veolia extensively referenced its work in Indianapolis as a successful model that could inform Veolia's guidance in St. Louis. However, the company's 20-year contract with Indianapolis was terminated by the city less than halfway through. Non-union employees claimed that the company cut retirement plans, health care, and other benefits, costing the workers more than $50 million over 25 years. Veolia was sued for breaking state contract law and for overcharging 250,000 residents. Consumer complaints doubled, and the utility saw rate hikes of more than 35%. If Veolia gave us Indianapolis as an example of a success story, what could a failure possibly look like? Well, it might look like Whitesburg, Kentucky, where the water was found to contain unsafe levels of diesel fuel. The plant was equipped with a carbon feeder system that removes hydrocarbons from the water, but according to a Veolia spokesperson, the carbon feeder was only run when taste and smell was an issue because it was too expensive to run constantly. This is not the kind of cost-saving measures we want in St. Louis. It might also look like Richmond, California, where Veolia was hired to cut costs and to develop and implement an improvement plan for the city's sewer and stormwater systems. 4 years later, they had not even finished designing the plan, and the city and Veolia were sued for dumping more than 17 million gallons of raw sewage into the San Francisco Bay. Richmond taxpayers had to pay millions in settlements while Veolia continued to dump sewage into the waterways. Or it might look like, or smell like, Lynn, Massachusetts did when it was blanketed with stench due to sewer overflows and flooding as a result of poor design and workmanship of system upgrades, and because Veolia refused to properly treat the wastewater. The city ended the contract because Veolia failed to stay adequately bonded for the project. The city of Lynn was left liable for $22 million in expenses to clean up the mess. These are just a few of the communities across the U.S. and Europe that have had the misfortune of entering into contracts with Veolia. Around the room, if you want to hold up the sign, you'll see some of the other communities that wish their city officials had dumped Veolia from their start. Veolia's international human rights violations motivate many of our coalition members. We are concerned that Veolia supports systematic segregation and discriminatory practices targeting Palestinians by offering support in the form of wastewater treatment to illegal settlements in the occupied West Bank, operating bus systems on segregated roads, and by operating a landfill that dumps trash from Israel and its settlements on Palestinian farmers and families' lands. In fact, the United Nations Special Rapporteur Richard Falk has recommended that Veolia, quote, should be boycotted until they bring their operations into line with international human rights and humanitarian law and standards. We are repeatedly told that this is just a consulting contract, right? But we wonder why Veolia would spend so much time and money on a sustained, aggressive public relations campaign costing untold tens of thousands of dollars for a measly $250,000 contract. It's clear from the contract they wrote for the city that they have much more in mind for us. The current contract makes numerous references to a Phase 2 implementation. City Attorney Mr. Garvin pointed out last week that the Phase 2 does not, legally speaking, need to be approved by the ENA. We are concerned that Veolia intends to use this contract in order to gain a foothold in a city with top-rated water, in a region with an abundance of fresh water, in a country where fresh water is increasingly scarce. We learned last week that the city attorney had not even seen the original contract with Veolia, much less negotiated, until recently. We find it frightening that the original version was nearly approved by the ENA and certainly would have been were it not for public opposition. This says a lot about the sort of company Veolia is. They will try to do, and do, get away with as much as they possibly can until enough people are hurt and they are made to stop. The main issue is not the wording of the details of the current contract. The issue is Veolia and its disastrous record on the environment, labor, human rights, service, mismanagement, breaking promises, negligence, and more. Our water department may need help, but it does not need Veolia's help, even if the contract were nothing more than seeking advice. Veolia is still the wrong choice.
My name is Kathleen Logan Smith. I'm the Environmental Policy Director for the Missouri Coalition for the Environment. I live in the city of St. Louis, and city water is essential to my life and the people, the pets, the children, and the neighbors and friends that I love. I'm here today asking you to help St. Louis reject a contract with Veolia. I first came to know Veolia for its operation of the hazardous waste incinerator in Sauget, Illinois, and it is a company's record there that raised my initial concerns about its interest in our drinking water. On September 27, 2006, Veolia Environmental Services in Sauget was issued notice of violations for breaking federal environmental laws. The violations demonstrate a disregard for public safety, for rules, for standards, for good procedures, for effective training. Specifically, Veolia was cited for uncontrolled emissions, failure to operate equipment to prevent releases of hazardous air pollutants, improper monitoring for leak detection and repair, failure to operate equipment in a manner consistent with good air pollution control. And I ask you, do we want a company that manages hazardous waste poorly just across the river to manage our drinking water? This year, EPA has reopened the Veolia air permit at its hazardous waste incinerator in Sauget. EPA found it necessary to beef up monitoring of Veolia's facility there to ensure compliance after finding the company's data to be unreliable. And I ask you, do we want a company whose data is unreliable to be near our drinking water? My familiarity with Veolia's hazardous waste record contributes to my distrust of Veolia and prompted deeper investigations into the way the company does business elsewhere. The Lexington, Kentucky Herald Leader published the account on February 22nd that illustrates how Veolia prioritizes its responsibilities to the public when the upstream diesel fuel spill into the river threatened to taint the water supply. Customers woke up to the smell of petroleum in their tap water Saturday morning on February 12th. A no-contact order was in effect for over 3 days, during which customers could use water only to flush toilets. They were told they couldn't use it for their laundry. Restaurants had to use bottled water to cook, to wash dishes, even to clean their floors, and to deal with their food, which added additional Valentine's Day hardship to the restaurants in the town. The carbon filter that would have removed the diesel fuel was shut down multiple times, and the spokesman actually did tell the newspaper that it was expensive to run that filter constantly. They were saving money. They were pinching pennies. They were issued a notice of violation at